So I would like to start saying that
I loved the Golden Spurtle because I had never seen something like that, really.
Thank you.
And I didn't know, I'm not from here, I come from Italy,
Where
so
do you live?
in Florence I live.
Nice.
So actually when I discovered that it was this competition, I was like, no, I want to go and see it, like in real life.
Yes.
So Constantine, I would like to ask you when you discovered that this competition was going on and actually, took the interest to, I want to tell this story, I want to tell this competition, and not, I think you go beyond like the quirky competition and become like more the portrait of the community.
Yes.
It felt really, kind of warm to see this war. Yeah.
That's
So
very kind. So it was all very spontaneous, really. So the Australian competitor, Toby Wilson, who's in the film, he told us about the competition. I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting and funny. And then I work in the opera mainly as a director.
Okay.
And so I was in Berlin working on a project that was like very serious and very intense. And I was like, I need to go and just do something completely different.
Yes.
And I went to Carbridge basically unannounced and just started knocking on people's doors kind of randomly. And found Charlie and completely fell in love with him, who we follow as the leader of the competition. And was a bit like, oh my God, I think there might be a story here. Because obviously the porridge making is fun, but there's a deeper story about, what you do when you're older and what is legacy about and all of these sort of deeper things that I kind of was really interested in. And and so we just went from there, and it was sort of very much by chance, a lot of it. So we got really lucky, I think.
Yeah. Actually, there is, I already said that there is this palpable warmth that you give to the story and to the details that you're showing, but also, it's both visually and emotionally striking because you get the chance to, focus on the right moments, I think. So I think, I don't think it's all lucky, but I think you have like this kind of, kind of perception of what is going to be, what you're gonna show in the documentary.
Totally.
So, and could you actually share also how did you collaborate with Dimitri?
Yes.
And, for crafting, I think, more the aesthetic of the film.
Yes.
And how did you, I'm starting myself to know how to make a documentary, so I'm interested in the part also of the technicality, let's say.
Yep.
Did you ask like people like Charlie to do something, or you just followed him? Because
that's a great question. So it was a combination
of the two.
So firstly, the thing about working with Dimitri, who is an amazing, painter as much as he's a cinematographer, is that he's not just like, as they say, a gun for hire. Like, we sort of built the story together. We knew the world that we wanted to make. He didn't just sort of turn up and turn a camera on. We both have a very like strong connection with each other as friends. And even for me, it's so important that my job is to relax the people in front of the camera, but Dimitri as well needs to have like a gentle touch and not make people feel intimidated. So we're a bit like, the lines between cinematographer and director get kind of blurry, and we're both sort of telling the same stories. That was really important. And then he and I went together on an initial trip where I recorded sound and Dimitri shot it. And so we developed like an instinct for how we wanted it to look from that sort of research trip. And a big part of it was like, we were like, this place is so nostalgic and it has this like beautiful old school feeling. This could almost be like a BBC television documentary from 1955. And we really wanted to sort of embrace that. And so we knew the village really well before we went back with a bigger team. And we knew the people really well before we went back with a bigger team. So that meant there was a lot more patience with setting up these shots, and it wasn't sort of go. It was actually quite slow. And then it was a combination of things. Like, we had the scenes that we wanted to get that were more constructed, like Charlie when he has the model of the village. It's obviously a contrived scene. But then certain things where we would just set the camera up and ask one question, and then we'd just shut up and people would just start talking. And I think that was sort of a joy, that there was a trust there between the subject and Dimitri and I, where people could just sort of feel very relaxed to kind of just sort of in a very organic way just sort of start speaking. And I think that's how we got some of the most beautiful stuff in the film, which was just like this very, I would say, intimate relationship that we wouldn't have got if we just went in for 1 week and we're out in 1 week. It was a slow process.
And how long did it take, like from the first time you went there? I think you created a bond before going back and started maybe having all the shooting and the footage.
That's
and also, I found it very interesting, the soundtrack that you put in the movie, because, you know, like when I talk to people about Scotland and Scottish people, they are all about, you know, like the cliches music, the cliche stuff. And actually, when you get to know them, it's like we are all deeply connected, you know, like people from Italy has similarity to the Scottish people. So it's amazing to see that. So how did you actually collaborate with the composer Simon Burkhart to put all these together and, you know, not make it sound like the Scottish cliche?
Well, I mean, because we're a mostly Australian team, we don't feel qualified to have the bagpipes in it, you know. But this was the thing. We were like, let's get the sound of the village as opposed to the sound of Scotland, you know, because what does that even mean really?
Yeah.
And you will go into those cliches if you're not careful. And Simon and I we've worked very closely together. I wrote a opera libretto for him a few years ago, and he wrote the music. And we spent, and you know, because we both come from the opera and from the classical music world, this was going to be the music was going to be a really important part of the storytelling. And we didn't want to use some electric keyboard with a violin effect, you know. So we got a bunch of friends together and people that we knew and assembled this 15-piece orchestra because we wanted it to kind of feel live and, you know, to have the kind of, you know, this scratchy quality that maybe this is an orchestra they're playing in the Carbridge Village Hall or something. And to me, you know, particularly when we're dealing with this documentary is, you know, it's slow and it's not like there's these big narrative twists and turns and, you know, big scandals or anything. So it was really important that the atmosphere felt right because that's what keeps you watching, that you kind of can sink into a world, you know, for 75 minutes. And obviously the music is such an important part of, conveying both the drama and the charm of this story.
Yeah, I found it fantastic actually, and we are in the right room. You know, actually, also the film for me, it's there is this poignancy in transition that you make, and also, you know, especially the moment when there is the retirement of Charlie Miller as, you know, head organizer. And so how did you actually approach documenting this personal and also, you know, like generational change? Because what I have been talking lately in many interviews at this festival is that, you know, I think there is like a theme in common in all the film that I've seen so far, that is this, you know, losing of our roots somehow, and how, you know, like also deep connection to what is important, to what is, let me say, healthy. Yeah. So that's what I took away from.
No, that's you completely got it. That's exactly right. And I think the joy of it is that these cultures and these communities are both incredibly localized, but also open to anyone, you know. And this is the joy of the guy who wins the competition as well, is that he's not Scottish, you know, he's a younger guy. And I think there was something really kind of, not in sort of a cheesy kind of way, something sort of very optimistic and fun about that you can, culture is both historical, but it's also actively created and maintained. And so I think there is a hope there for these traditions that even when the people who found it, who are older, pass on, there will be a new generation to kind of like come in and make it their own. And particularly, as you're saying, is like people are more and more disconnected from their roots and from the land and from their history and from even like, you know, coming together in the real world to do something as absurd as a porridge making competition. And, you know, and that's something, and I'm rambling a little bit, but there was something really fun about the fact that I was like, why did the village start this competition? And there's not this great big story. They're like, oh, it was just sort of something to do, to get some tourists in and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is fantastic that you can just, if you make a decision, you can just make it on your own and the significance will kind of emerge.
Yeah. So it was simple as that. In fact, when you found out, it was like, oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like the simple thing that I could ever imagine. So I would like to ask you one last question.
Please.
So, I think the Golden Spot can be viewed as, also a gentle antidote to what we were saying before, to this chaos we are living in, because, being in Edinburgh these days with the Fringe was totally crazy for me, and you don't have moments to, talk to yourself in your mind because you are always overwhelmed by noise and people talking.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, what is important even for you after you have realized this, documentary and story, and what do you hope maybe also in the future, if you want to continue to share these thoughts about, connection and cultural exchange with people, and also considering that you are working, in a field, the opera, that is, something that is considered, let me say, out of fashion.
Absolutely.
Don't get offended, but
no, not at all.
And it's it's awful because opera is like we said, our roots, our
If you as an Italian,
identity.
Right?
Yeah.
Completely. I think there is something in. It's an important reminder, as you say, in a world that is so chaotic and busy and overwhelming, that there are pockets of optimism out there that can be found in unexpected, unexpected ventures. And I think there also is kind of a joy in, finding things that are unfashionable and older and passé and out of touch, and sort of really deeply investigating why they're there and why they've lasted for so long. And so, in a very sort of, I love the fact that most people in the film are older, right?
Yeah.
And I think older people often, don't get a voice in the popular landscape and can get pushed off to the side. Where I sort of love seeing this scrappy community who, put a lot of work in to make this event happen year after year. And I think there is something about, in an incredibly youth-obsessed culture, to be older people can just be as vibrant and fun and funny, as exciting as an 18-year-old.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Constantine. It was lovely talking to you.